Marketing Asia podcast. I'm your host, Joe Escobedo. And with me today is Wati Mohammed Taib, who is the VP Regional Partnerships Consumer Healthcare at Hello Health Group. Wati, thanks so much for coming on the show. Good to see you again.
Hi, Joe. Good to see you. Nice to
Ab-
see you online.
Absolutely, always good to see you.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. This is going to be an interesting one for sure. Anyone who's in healthcare marketing, I think there's a lot of good conversations going to hopefully happen here in
Mhm.
a little bit. So, in
I
terms
hope
of
so.
setting, there will be with you. So, we'll be talking about different marketing channels, some of the commonly held beliefs in the industry that you passionately disagree with. So, let's go ahead and get started. I'd love to
Mhm.
hear because healthcare is one of those space that's seen as quite conservative. People are doing things, a lot of it's quite similar because of regulatory and other kind of blockades. So I'd
Mhm.
love to hear your thoughts on what is one commonly held belief in your industry that you passionately disagree with.
Right. Okay. Thanks for the question, Joe. Well, I thought about it, right? The thing is that I'm in healthcare marketing and I'm in healthcare digital marketing. So that kind of says a lot about what I'm going to say next, right? In terms of the commonly held belief in the industry that I passionately disagree with is that a lot of people think that SEO is dead, but I think that SEO is here to stay because it will never be dead as long as people are still searching online for information. So I think the word is not dead, but that SEO has evolved. But certainly not dead. It has not died yet. Not 6 feet underground yet. Because I think for me, SEO encompasses more than just links and keywords. And when you think about SEO, you need to think about it in three three areas from an on-site perspective, off-site perspective, and technical perspective. And SEO, and with SEO, I think it is quite key to consistently provide value in everything that you do, from building a very strong brand presence through the quality of your content to be able to provide value to your consumers, attention grabbing content, creative content, because we are playing in a very well regulated field in which there's a lot of things that we want to say and we cannot say. So how do we use content to really represent what we want to say? And of course, optimizing our website layout and usability. So these are all the things that we need to do in order to win in SEO. And it is not just about the keywords, and it is not just about the links. And so this is why I think that SEO is not dead. SEO is here to stay, and we as marketers need to learn how to evolve with it and how to win in SEO from looking beyond keywords and linking. So that is what I think I'm quite passionate about in terms of content marketing.
Very interesting. I know a lot of people say that SEO or email marketing is dead simply because it's one of the oldest marketing channels. I'd love to hear, because you said that more folks should be leveraging SEO. What has been your biggest key learning from doing SEO over the past few years, and what impact has it had in your organization?
Mm. I think the biggest learning, which is alongside with the client, is that they think SEO is instantaneous. Once you put up a content or a piece of article on my web on the website, I think that I can get all the organic traffic or the traffic to my site. So that is that is true only when you give your content time to grow. Because the thing is that ranking in Google takes time and it's very challenging because there are millions of content pieces or websites that are wanting to get onto Google, the first page of Google, right? And so I think knowing that SEO is a long term strategy is really quite important. And knowing that it takes time and effort is already also quite important. And knowing that when you get there, you will truly reap the benefits of the SEO because you will start to see a growth in the organic traffic. You will start to see people, your consumers engaging on your site because the content that you're providing them is relevant to their search intent. And so I think That's one of the challenges when dealing with SEO. Now, the thing is that SEO is not the only form of marketing that you can do to get traffic to your site. You also need to marry SEO with SEM, and so that is really the key thing that we need to take into consideration, especially for us when we are discussing with our clients on their SEO on their SEO strategy. Think long term, but in the short term, think how SEM can support us. So that is how I look at it. And a lot of them also kind of think, okay, if I do an SEO, if I do an SEO article, I can get the traffic, but that is just one part of it. You need to think of it as a total in totality from a content strategy standpoint. From the type of from the types of content you have, the format, how is it flowing to allow for second interaction, etc., etc. So I think it is really quite important to not think of SEO in silos, but think of it as an overall SEO and content strategy.
That's a
Mm.
very good point, Wati. And like you said, thinking about it from a long term point of view and not thinking about
Mm.
it in silos. Sean was kind enough to chip in. Thanks so much for joining us, Sean. Sean says
Hi, Sean.
SEO is a fantastic channel, especially for mid high intent prospects. He says it does struggle with branding and discovery stages where social shines. Sean is from
Mm.
LinkedIn, so um, and then he
Yes.
talks about some of the
Mm.
challenges as well. Yeah, if Wati, you want
Yeah.
to jump on that?
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Sean. I think social plays an important part as well. Like I've said, it does not SEO does not work in silos, right? You need the social to create the buzz, to create that energy, to help you get the conversations going. And all these are all part of the overall mix of getting you that ranking on Google, being recognized as an authority in your in your subject matter or your area. So I think so. I'm not excluding social, but I think that it all works together to form one an army of how we can get a more organic traffic to our site or more traffic to our site. Mm.
Absolutely, Wati. I think it's a very good point. And one thing I've tried to do previously with clients is going back to what you were saying, how do you marry SEO
Mm.
and and social? And so, for example,
Mm.
leveraging keywords, seeing how you can use
Yeah.
some of those FAQs, put them back on social, use them as a driver to lead back to a specific landing page, which will hopefully help with traffic and SEO. So, really good
Mm.
points. Like I said, Sean has chipped in. He's on fire today. Sean is our third guest on today's show. Sean says convincing management on investment CEO is really challenging as it takes time.
Mm.
Says, got to talk about what's your strategy to show SEO value when many KPIs are short term. So you talked about this, Wati, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms of how do you go about convincing either your clients or your leadership team on the importance of doing SEO when, to your point and Sean's point, it is a long term strategy. How do you convince them to go ahead and do it?
Mm. Yeah, correct. So I think it goes back to the earlier mentioned of marrying SEM and SEO, right? SEM can support you in your short-term strategy, while in parallel you build your SEO strategy. And for sure, I think management always wants to see quick returns, right? However, I think it is our job to educate the management on how SEO work and how it will help us or how it will help the brand to reap the benefit at the end of the day. So think of it as I think I read somewhere someone mentioned it. SEO is like building your savings account. So you slowly put in money to it, and it will build, and the compound interest will help you to also reach a point where you will hit the KPIs that you want. So I think it also works that way. It you need to have it. You need to because people are searching online. You want to be there when people are searching for you, and you want to get quality content with all your keywords. But I think when you just talk SEO, the management will be like, what I need to wait 6 months for the result. I think you need to do it together. You need to show them how this is how SEM is going to support us, and this is how SEO is going to support us.
So
Mm,
that's a good point in terms of, like you said, talking leveraging different channels such that some
mm,
channels are meant for short term, which
correct.
obviously SEM is,
Mm-hmm.
and some are meant for long term, like SEO. So it's important that you
Mm,
share, I guess, the bigger picture so you can understand that. Otherwise, like you said, they may question why would be doing SEO when it's going to take me 6 months to a year to rank or get any results. Um,
correct.
Sean says, "Yeah, totally
Yeah.
resonating with this. Used to be in healthcare too. I didn't know that." So
So
Sean,
fun,
yes,
Sean. We should connect.
I was gonna say, yeah, Sean, we have a little connection going right here, live here on the show. It's awesome. He says, "Thanks so
Yes.
much for sharing. Agreed,
Yeah.
smart strategy.
Yeah.
Thanks so much."
When I first started to, I think I also kind of struggled to explain to the clients why they have to think SEO as a long-term strategy, and because some of them challenge me, or I can just spend money and I can get the traffic. However, we also need to understand the psychology of the consumer search behavior. How many of us actually click on ads? Now we do click on ads, but most of us actually, when we are searching for serious content, we will go to the links underneath the ads, right? And so that's how I think we need to seed into the management management mind of our strategy of long term and short term strategy. So just talking about SEO, I don't think that's gonna fly because short term people are management is still looking at what can we bring in the short term, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think now more than ever, they're looking at what can you bring in the short term, what kind of results can you
Right.
bring back. Elise, thanks very much for joining us. Elise says, I personally think SEO is really important to give your website eyeballs through SERPs.
Mhm.
What happens when social media sites decide one day to shut down? So very, very interesting point. And I think
Mm,
David and I from HubSpot were talking about this just a few minutes ago, is that, I don't know if Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or those channels will shut down, but they will definitely change in terms of the algorithms, as Facebook has over the years,
yeah.
where the organic reach used to be through the roof. Now you have to kind of pay to play, and it's becoming the case with a lot of different social media platforms. So
Mm,
I think one
yeah.
thing, yeah, where you don't really have as much power or leverage is social and SEO to some extent as well, because Google is always changing the algorithms. But Wati, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well too.
Yeah. I think how I see it is that I actually had this conversation with one of my ex colleague, and we thought that, well, this is interesting. However, as marketers, you also need to look at innovative ways to reach out and amplify our reach to our consumers, right? While social is a key component of our strategy, but what about looking at other platforms like a publisher platform to help us support in sponsored marketing, like like other marketing channels, the online marketing channels that can help us to drive our message and drive traffic to our site in addition to social. And I mean, I don't think LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram are going to shut down anytime soon. But I think we as marketers need to look at other ways to find our traffic or our users beyond social. It is a big component, but what else can we do? Can we work with publishers to do the sponsored marketing? Can we work with other I would say with media companies to help us as well? So I think that is my short comment on that note in regards to social.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Wati. You mentioned partnerships with publishers and media companies. I'd
Mm.
love to hear more about your experience with that. What have been some of the key learnings? And once again, what has been the impact on what you've been doing?
Mm, right. Oh, well, I work with a publisher, Hello Health. We are one of the largest online health and wellness platform in Asia. And how we do, and we attract users to our platform because of the quality healthcare content that we serve. And one of the things that the client really like working with us is that beyond the reach in social, we also have our own reach. So publishers will have their own reach, will have their own will have their own user base of visitors who visit them. They can also be a very good channel for marketers to consider when doing direct marketing online. Yeah, through sponsored content and through performance content, and all these things will really help to support and create a more meaningful engagement with your with your consumers beyond social.
Absolutely. I have to agree because I'm also building a media company as well. So shameless plug. But I was on a call about literally 5 minutes ago with a potential client. We were talking about
Mm,
what is the approach in working with different media companies. I think one thing that the approach that we've taken is taking a more, I guess, a hybrid ABM plus content marketing approach. So you think of getting a list of target accounts if you're doing B2B from a particular company, and then cross referencing that with your existing contacts on the media publisher side to see, okay, how can we facilitate some of these relationships? How can we co-create content together? And that's something we're doing with a couple of tech companies right now. Knock on wood, that comes out next month. But I think to your point, yeah, there are different channels you could explore. A lot of times we think we can maybe only leverage our own channels or things that we have our own audience. You talked about SEO, you talked about social and things like that. But if you're just getting started out, or if you don't have awareness, particularly in a new market, I think this is where partnerships are really, really important. And I think over the series of interviews we've done, this is something that we've talked about is if you're trying to penetrate a new market and you don't have, existing audience or relationships, one thing you could do is leverage an existing leverage a partner's contacts who already have relationships in that particular market, who already have the in-market expertise. So that might be something helpful for those who are getting started in their space, particularly in the healthcare or whatever space they're trying to enter.
yeah,
What?
exactly. Because starting up it is costly in terms of resources, in terms of investments. And when you work with partners who have already established themselves, it can help to accelerate your plan and help you to scale up without having to put behind a huge investment to what you are trying to do. Certainly, going on social is good, but looking at strategic partnerships with media companies, publishers, organizations that can help you to amplify and reach out your message to the target audience is also another area that we as marketers have to consider. And
Yeah,
then
very. Yeah. Sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that I wanted to kind of say then it is all about really what you need them to support you with and how they can support you through the services and products that they have. It is really a partnership, especially when you're so new to the market and you're looking for a trusted partners and credible partners to work with. You look at the number of visitors that they have, the content pieces that they have, the engagement rate that they have. But beyond that, I think you also need to look at the at your partner's niche in the market in the category that you are looking at.
Absolutely, that's an interesting one in terms of niche, not only in terms of what you're doing for your own targeting, but also from the partners. So maybe you could share more about that and what's really the importance of partnering with a another organization that has a good niche.
Mm, yeah, like for example, uh, currently in this part of the world, whilst I say that HelloHealth is the largest and leading Asia in health and wellness information, there are already other players in the big markets. And so how do we differentiate ourselves? Is really at looking at our data and telling our clients these are the group of people who are specifically going to our site to look at this particular content, and we see that this is your area. These are the group of people that you're looking to reach out to, and we are the number one in this particular group of patients. Whilst we may not have the millions of visitors compared to our competitors, and I'm saying that because the thing is that um, we can't be number one in everything, right? And so when we work with partners, we also then advise them on who are their target audience, what is their healthcare what is the category, and then we will tell them that okay, we have the number one audience in that category, or we have the number two audience, but given our engagement data, this is how we think that we can support you. So there are many ways in which we can have that conversation again, depending on at the end of the day what is the challenge, what is the marketing challenge, what's the objective, and what's the KPI that the client is looking for or our partners are looking for.
No, I think those are very, very, very good points you bring up, Wanti. Um, One thing that I'd love to get your thoughts on is Um, Actually, Sean has a point. He's joking in here. He says, if management just refuses, going back to what you were talking about earlier, do you move on or find a new boss? Uh,
I'll send them for this session, Sean.
yes, exactly. Watch this or. But I think it brings up a good point in terms of leadership as well. Like you have to have a leader that believes in brand building and building up some of these things over the long term. But Sean, yeah, I appreciate you chiming in. And you bring up another good point right now, I think, another for salespeople, because if you are, a smaller organization and you're going against some of the big boys, how do you compete with them? So you bring up some very good points in terms of maybe you have a niche around a particular audience segment, a specific market, whatever it is, because otherwise it's very, very difficult for organizations, particularly smaller organizations, compete with the big boys. Sean, if you're still listening, I'd love to hear thoughts on your experience with this as well too. But I think when you're doing sales or trying to go against the big boys in the market, that's some really, really good advice is to focus on your niche and show how you're better, or maybe can provide better support than the big boys can.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I
Yeah,
guess
sorry.
mm, casting the net wide is good uh, if you have good budget. But a lot of us know that budget is getting cut, and we have to be more strategic in what we do. So really finding that niche and be super specific and precise in our selection of the target audience and how we want to be engaging them will really help us to meet our objectives. So
Uh,
precision is key. I'll have to say if you have a limited budget.
Yes, and I think most, nowadays most companies have had their budget slashed, particularly when it comes to marketing and sales. So really good feedback to focus on precision, focus on your niche audience, and save some of that budget. Patrick, thanks so much for joining us. He says great topic. Thank you. Really appreciate the support. If you have any questions, do let me know. Um, awesome. Otherwise, there's one question that I'd love to get your thoughts on, Wati, which is if you could ask 100 of your peers in the healthcare marketing space one question, what would it be?
Well, I thought about it. I have two, but I think I want to ask them if they have one day to prepare for COVID-19. So, COVID-19 is going to hit tomorrow. What would they do differently and why or why not? Because I see and I've read a lot of and I've had conversations in which marketers are grappling with COVID-19, like, oh dear, what are we going to do, and how are we going to shift our marketing focus, etc., etc. I would really like to hear what the leadership team would think if they have that just one day. What would they do differently? What would they change, and how would they react to it? That would be an interesting question for me.
That is an interesting question. So just to recap, if I heard that correctly, if they had one day, if they knew COVID was coming, what would they do differently, or how would they prepare for it? Is that
Yeah,
right?
correct, correct.
Very, very
I
interesting
don't know.
question. I'll have to
Do
ask.
I have a marketing leader in this group? I would like to hear from you.
Yeah, if there's any marketing leaders listening, feel free to chime in what you would do differently, guys, or how you would plan things. A very good question, though. I really appreciate that. Awesome. Well, Wati, thank you so much for coming to the show. Really, really appreciate it. Last
Pleasure.
question is, how can people get in touch with you to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Well, you can get in touch with me. My name on the screen is my LinkedIn name, and you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can also email me at wati.type@hellohealthgroup.com.
Awesome. Well, Wati, thank you so much for coming to the show. Really, really
Thank
appreciate you
you,
sharing
Joe.
all your
Thank you
healthcare
for
marketing
having me.
insights. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much, everyone, for chiming in today. We had a really good conversation. I appreciate
Thank
Sean, Elise,
you.
and Patrick for chiming in.
Thanks,
A lot of
Sean. Thanks, Patrick.
thanks so much, guys. And if you're watching or listening, do feel free to share this with your colleagues, your peers, anyone interested in healthcare marketing. A lot of good practical insights and takeaways from today's conversation. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. Stay safe, take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Joe. Bye.